Let's talk COVID-19 and fan-based events. Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Scott here from CanGeek Games and Collectibles, welcoming you as always to the CanGeek YouTube channel. And I have to tell you, the last 2 weeks have been very busy for us. On Sunday, March the 1st, CanGeek joined our friends from Pop Culture Canada as vendors at the Bowmanville Comic-Con. The following week, on Sunday, March the 8th, we were vending at the Toy Force Ajax Toy Invasion. And both events saw a very impressive turnout of both vendors and attendees. However, after those events, I found myself engaged in a number of conversations with people on social media related to fan-based events and COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Now, before I weigh in on this subject, I want to make something very clear. I am not a medical professional. I have spoken with certain family members that are medical professionals, but myself, I am not one. So everything that I'm about to say here is a personal opinion, but it's coming from a good place. It's coming from my heart. So just bear with me on this. So the suggestion was recently made to me by a couple of different people on social media that fan-based events such as Comic-Cons, ToyCons, or whatever the regional event may be, should be either indefinitely postponed or canceled until such time as the world comes to terms with the reality of COVID-19. Now, when this suggestion was made to me, I had a response that certain people were not prepared to deal with. For several years before my wife and I started CanGeek Games and Collectibles, I worked as a retail manager for some fairly large companies, including Blockbuster Video and EB Games Canada. And as I pointed out to this person, if I were to call my employer, specifically a retail-based employer, and tell them that I wasn't going to come into work because of COVID-19. Not because, I've been diagnosed with it, but just because I don't feel comfortable with interacting with the general public. I am fairly confident that I wouldn't have a job very long. So what I said to this person was, how would you suggest that people such as myself that depend on fan-based events like Comic-Cons and ToyCons to put a roof over their head, the food in the stomach of their families, and clothes on the back of their children, how would you suggest that they, carve out a living if these fan-based events were to be indefinitely canceled? Now, of course, they didn't know how to respond to that. But here's my 2 cents worth on the subject. I think common sense needs to prevail here. For example, it's common sense that we should be washing our hands on a regular basis. It's common sense that we should be practicing good hygiene in general. It's common sense that if you're not feeling well, that you seek professional medical attention. And it is common sense, or at least it should be common sense, that if you aren't feeling well and you aren't sure what's wrong with you, that you avoid highly concentrated areas where people will congregate, such as, a large Comic-Con event. But it is not common sense for people to suggest that these events should stop while, the global health community learns how to handle the reality of COVID-19. If your government comes along and institutes, a form of martial law, shall we say, and locks your country down, such as Italy more or less has, that's a whole other subject. But here in North America, that is not what is taking place. I mean, there's certain parts of the U.S. that have declared a state of emergency, like California, but I've yet to see anyone in Canada do this. No government or regional body has stepped up to, lock things down or institute a state of emergency. So it isn't common sense, in my opinion, to suggest that people who depend on, conventions, regardless of what the convention is, to carve out a living for themselves and to support their families, that these conventions should be, postponed or indefinitely canceled while the World Health Organization or the global health community learns how to address COVID-19. If you disagree with me on this subject, obviously you're entitled to your opinion, and maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm rolling the dice every time my wife and I load up our vehicle and head to a different Comic-Con. And maybe one of these days it's going to bite me in the butt. But it is how we earn a living. It is how we put, again, a roof over our head, clothes on, ourselves and our children, and food in our stomachs. So I would be very interested in hearing where you stand on this subject and what you would recommend to people who make a living off of these types of events, in terms of, surviving financially until such time as this is resolved, if these types of events were canceled. So please do feel free to share your thoughts with me. I honestly want to hear what you think and what you have to say on this subject. As I just said, you might be right, I might be wrong, and maybe I need a new perspective on how to look at this. So let's talk about this. In the meantime, as always, thank you very much for listening to me ramble. If you are interested in coming out to see CanGeek Games and Collectibles, we will be vending at the Burlington ToyCon this coming Sunday on March the 15th. And then the following week, we will be vending at Breakout Con 2020 at the Sheridan Center in downtown Toronto. So we invite you to come by and see us at one of those events. Stay healthy, stay safe. Again, as always, thanks for joining us here on the CanGeek YouTube channel. And until next time, take it easy and ciao for now.